Imagine a world where the biggest technological marvel of the day is a water-powered loom that can weave a shirt faster than a caffeinated squirrel on a treadmill. Now picture that same world, a mere handful of decades later, belching smoke from towering factories, streets choked with soot-streaked workers, and the very rhythm of daily life rewired by steam, steel, and the relentless tick of a clock that never seems to stop. That, dear viewer, is the Industrial Revolution, a period so transformative it makes the invention of the wheel look like a modest upgrade to a shopping cart. We're about to take a whirlwind, fact-filled ride through the smoky alleys, clanking machines, and social upheavals that turned agrarian villages into bustling metropolises, and why it all still matters to your meme-filled scroll today. Let's start with a simple question. What exactly is the Industrial Revolution? Historians love to slap dates on it, roughly 1760 to 1840 in Britain, then spreading like a contagious yawn across Europe, the United States, and eventually the globe. But dates are just the scaffolding. The real story is about how humans learned to harness energy beyond muscle and wind, turning coal into power, iron into machinery, and human ingenuity into a production line that could churn out goods at a pace previously reserved for mythic gods feasting on ambrosia. If you ever wondered why your great-great-grandfather's diary reads like a laundry list of worked 14 hours, ate gruel, dreamed of a day off, you can thank the Industrial Revolution for turning day off into a radical concept that labor unions would later fight for, right after they figured out how to stop the factory overseer from using the whistle as a personal alarm clock. Why did this revolution ignite first in the damp, fog-kissed islands of Britain? It wasn't because the Brits had a secret stash of superhero capes hidden in their attics. A confluence of factors made the perfect storm. Abundant coal deposits lying close to the surface, a network of navigable rivers and later canals that turned inland transport into a slick, low-friction highway, a relatively stable political climate that encouraged property rights and patents. Yes, the Brits loved protecting their "I invented a better spoon" ideas, and a burgeoning consumer class eager for goods beyond the homespun and the home brewed. Think of it as the ultimate gear-up in a role-playing game. Britain found the cheat code, coal, and then proceeded to level up its factories, its railroads, and its smug sense of superiority over continental Europe, which was still busy perfecting the art of the long, leisurely lunch. Now let's talk about the poster child of the revolution, the steam engine. Early versions, like Thomas Newcomen's atmospheric engine, were essentially giant, inefficient tea kettles that pumped water out of mines. Useful, but about as exciting as watching paint dry. Then came James Watt, who, in a flash of Scottish brilliance, added a separate condenser, turning that tea kettle into a high-performance espresso machine for industry. Watt's engine didn't just pump water, it turned wheels, drove looms, and later hauled locomotives that made the phrase "full steam ahead" literal rather than motivational poster fodder. Watt's improvements were so influential that the unit of power, the watt, bears his name. So every time you charge your phone, you're indirectly thanking a man who spent his spare time tinkering with steam, while the rest of us were still figuring out how to not burn toast. If steam was the heart, textiles were the bloodstream. The spinning jenny, invented by James Hargreaves in 1764, allowed a single worker to spin multiple spools of thread simultaneously. Imagine a multitasking octopus, but with less ink and more yarn. Then came the water frame, Richard Arkwright, and the spinning mule, Samuel Crompton, which together turned cottage-based spinning into a factory-centric symphony of clacking spindles. Before these machines, a family's production line consisted of mom spinning, dad weaving, and the kids occasionally getting tangled in the yarn like mischievous kittens. After the jenny, the same family could produce enough cloth to outfit a small army, provided they didn't all faint from the sheer excitement of seeing their output multiply by a factor of 10. You can't build a factory on air and dreams alone, you need iron. The development of coke smelting by Abraham Darby I in the early 1700s allowed iron to be produced using coal instead of charcoal, which meant forests stopped being sacrificed for every nail and horseshoe. Later, Henry Court's puddling process and rolling mills turned brittle pig iron into malleable wrought iron, perfect for rails, bridges, and the occasional overambitious statue of a factory owner posing heroically beside a smokestack. The world's first iron bridge, erected over the River Severn in 1779, still stands today as a testament to humanity's newfound ability to make metal do more than just sit in a blacksmith's forge. It's like the original "Look, Ma, no wood" moment, except the Ma in question is now a skeptical peasant, wondering if the bridge will hold his cart, or if it'll just become a very expensive sled. With factories churning out goods, the next challenge was moving those goods from the smoky interior to the eager ports, and eventually to the waiting hands of consumers. Enter the canal mania of the late 18th century. Britain dug over 4,000 miles of canals, creating a liquid highway that made bulk transport cheap and efficient. Imagine a giant, slow-moving, water-based version of today's Amazon Prime, except the delivery trucks were barges pulled by horses, or if you were really lucky, by a stubborn mule named Bessie. If you think modern Britain's canal network were a modern app, it would be called Floaty Hall. The UI would be a series of locks, and the user reviews would complain about the occasional rogue duck blocking the lane. But canals had limits: speed, weather, and the pesky tendency to freeze in winter. The steam locomotive, pioneered by George Stephenson's Locomotion No. 1 in 1825, and later perfected with the rocket in 1829, changed the game. Railways could zip goods and people across the countryside at unprecedented speeds, up to a whopping 30 miles per hour, which felt like teleportation to someone accustomed to a horse's leisurely trot. Picture a Victorian gentleman, top hat askew, shouting "all aboard" as he tries to squeeze his luggage, his pet parrot, and a questionable amount of tea into a third-class carriage, while the conductor blows a whistle that sounds suspiciously like a disgruntled goose. The railway didn't just move cargo, it moved culture, spreading newspapers, fashion trends, and the occasional scandalous romance faster than ever before. All this industrial might needed workers, and workers needed places to live. The result? A massive migration from the countryside to burgeoning urban centres. Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, and later cities like Pittsburgh and Chicago swelled as peasants traded their pitchforks for factory whistles. By 1850, over half of Britain's population lived in towns of more than 10,000 people. A staggering shift from the agrarian norm, where the biggest crowd you'd see was at the annual village fair. If you ever wondered why modern cities have so many coffee shops per square mile, blame the Industrial Revolution. Workers needed caffeine to survive the 12-hour shifts, and entrepreneurs spotted a market for wake-up juice that could be sold in a paper cup for a penny. The first coffee houses of the industrial era were less about artisanal latte art and more about keeping the loom operators from nodding off into the warp threads. Now let's not romanticize the smokestacks. The flip side of rapid industrialization was a labor landscape that could make a modern HR department shudder. Factory days often stretched from dawn to dusk, with breaks as scarce as a polite conversation in a London fog. Children as young as 5 worked in textile mills, their tiny fingers adept at threading bobbins, but ill-suited for the lung-crushing cotton dust that filled the air. If you think your Monday morning commute is brutal, imagine a child's commute consisting of a crawl through a narrow dark shaft to reach a coal seam, then spending the next 10 hours hacking away at black rock while the foreman yells, "Faster lad, the Queen's Navy needs coal for its steamships." Spoiler, the Queen's Navy did need coal, but the child's lungs needed, well, anything but coal dust. If you're finding this journey through smokestacks and steam valves as fascinating as a cat watching a laser pointer, smash that like button, drop a comment with your favorite invention from the era, and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the quirks of history. The grim realities sparked a wave of reform. Figures like Robert Owen, a Welsh textile mill owner turned social experimenter, advocated for shorter workdays, education for workers' children, and cooperative living communities. Think of him as the original Silicon Valley visionary, except his disruptive startup was a utopian village in New Lanark, Scotland, where the motto might have been, "Work less, learn more, and maybe stop coughing up black phlegm." Owen's ideas were so radical that factory owners accused him of trying to turn productive workers into lazy philosophers. Owen reportedly replied, "If philosophy means not dying of lung disease before age 30, then yes, I'm guilty as charged." Public pressure eventually led to landmark legislation. The Factory Acts of 1802, 1833, and 1844 gradually limited child labor, mandated basic education, and introduced safety inspections. The 10 Hours Act of 1847 capped the workday for women and young persons at, you guessed it, 10 hours. A revolutionary concept that would make modern overtime debates look like a quaint debate over whether to add oat milk to your latte. Beyond the factories, the Industrial Revolution reshaped society's fabric. A new middle class emerged: factory owners, merchants, engineers, and professionals who enjoyed disposable income, leisure time, and a taste for novelties like the piano, the novel, and the department store. Meanwhile, the working class forged its own identity through trade unions, mutual aid societies, and a burgeoning press that gave voice to their grievances and aspirations. Imagine a Victorian factory worker, after a grueling shift, slipping into a penny gourd, a cheap theatre, to watch a melodrama about a heroic mill owner who saves a damsel in distress from a runaway loom. Talk about meta-entertainment. The worker could laugh, cry, and maybe dream of a future where the damsel saves herself and gets a paid lunch break. The revolution didn't stay bottled up in Britain. By the mid-19th century, Belgian ironworks, French textile mills, German chemical plants, and American railroads were all adopting British innovations, or in some cases, improving upon them. The United States, with its vast natural resources and a spirit of go big or go home, quickly became a powerhouse of steel production, thanks Andrew Carnegie, and automotive innovation. Hello, Henry Ford. Meanwhile, colonies supplied raw cotton, rubber, and minerals, tying the fortunes of far-flung regions to the smokestacks of Europe and North America. If the Industrial Revolution had a theme song, it might be a mashup of "We Will Rock You" for the relentless hammering of steel, and "Don't Stop Believin'" for the endless optimism that the next invention would finally solve yesterday's problems, while creating a whole new set of them. We can't discuss industrialization without acknowledging its environmental toll. The skies over industrial cities turned a perpetual shade of grey, earning nicknames like the Big Smoke for London. Rivers ran thick with effluent, and deforestation accelerated to feed the furnaces. The era's motto might as well have been "Progress at any cost," a sentiment that echoes in today's debates about climate change, sustainable energy, and the price of convenience. If you've ever complained about your city's air quality on a hazy day, just remember, at least you're not dodging soot-filled snowballs thrown by children who think the black flakes are a new kind of candy. Spoiler, they're not. While the popular image features burly men swinging hammers, the revolution also relied on a quieter, intellectual backbone, the rise of scientific societies, technical schools, and the spread of practical knowledge. The Lunar Society of Birmingham, a monthly gathering of thinkers like James Watt, Matthew Boulton, Erasmus Darwin, and Josiah Wedgwood, met, as the name suggests, during the full moon so they could travel safely home after dark. Over tea and experiments, they swapped ideas that bridge pure science and practical engineering, laying groundwork for disciplines we now take for granted, like chemistry and thermodynamics. Picture a bunch of gentlemen in powdered wigs, huddled around a candle, debating whether heat is a fluid or a motion, while outside, a factory whistle blows. A reminder that their lofty debates would soon power the very machines that made their candlelit meetings obsolete. History textbooks sometimes sideline the women who kept the industrial wheels turning. Female labor was ubiquitous in textile mills, match factories, and potteries. Beyond the factory floor, women like Ada Lovelace, daughter of the poet Lord Byron, wrote what many consider the first computer program for Charles Babbage's analytical engine, envisioning a machine that could do more than just calculate numbers. It could compose music or create art. Though her work went largely unnoticed in her lifetime, she's now celebrated as a pioneer of computing, a testament that the revolution's impact stretched far beyond smoke and steel into the realm of ideas. If Ada had a LinkedIn profile in the 1840s, her headline might read, "Mathematical Enchantress and Proto-Programmer," seeking opportunities to make machines less boring and more musical. With mass production came the need to sell mass-produced goods. Enter modern advertising. Catchy slogans, branded packaging, and the department store as a theatre of consumer desire. The Great Exhibition of 1851 in London's Crystal Palace showcased over 100,000 exhibits, from the latest sewing machines to exotic curiosities like a stuffed zebra. It was basically the world's first trade show, and the ultimate Instagram feed of its day, complete with influencers, well, aristocrats, posing next to gleaming machinery. Imagine a Victorian influencer, parasol in hand, declaring, "OMG, this new steel frame bicycle is so on trend. Hashtag pedal goals, hashtag industrial chick," while her followers frantically scribble notes in their leather-bound diaries. While railways dominated the 19th century, the seeds of the 20th century automobile were planted during the Industrial Revolution. Early experiments with steam-powered road vehicles, think Richard Trevithick's Puffing Devil in 1801, and internal combustion engines, Etienne Lenoir's gas engine in 1860, set the stage for Henry Ford's assembly line, which would take the factory concept and apply it to personal mobility, turning the car from a luxury toy into a commodity that could reshape suburbs, cities, and even the very concept of a road trip. If you've ever cursed a traffic jam, just remember, without the Industrial Revolution's push for mechanized transport, you'd be stuck waiting for a horse-drawn carriage to inch its way through a muddy rut, while the driver complains about the lack of Wi-Fi. Mass production created a demand for a literate workforce capable of reading instructions, understanding schematics, and keeping logs. Consequently, compulsory education laws began to appear. Prussia led the way in the early 19th century, followed by Britain's Forster Act of 1870, which laid the foundation for universal elementary education. Suddenly, children who might have spent their days scavenging for coal were learning to read, write, and cipher, skills that would empower them to demand better conditions, innovate in their own right, and eventually vote. Imagine a factory kid, fresh from spelling cat correctly, using his newfound literacy to draft a petition. "Dear factory owner, please stop making us breathe coal dust." Signed, the children who can now actually write their names. The British Empire, with its far-flung colonies, acted as a conduit for industrial tech. Railroads snaked across India, steamships plied the African coast, and telegraph lines connected London to Sydney in minutes, an astonishing feat that made the world feel smaller than ever before. This global network not only moved goods, but also spread ideas, legal systems, and unfortunately, exploitative practices that would echo throughout the 20th century. If the British Empire were a modern streaming service, its tagline would be, "Watch the world shrink in real time, now with 20% more colonial bureaucracy." So why should you, a 21st century viewer glued to a screen, care about a bunch of soot-covered factories from 2 centuries ago? Because the Industrial Revolution established the template for modern economic growth. Innovation drives productivity. Productivity creates wealth. Wealth funds further innovation. A virtuous cycle that has lifted billions out of poverty, though not without growing pains. It also taught us that rapid change brings social friction, requiring thoughtful policy, labor rights, and environmental stewardship. Lessons that are incredibly relevant as we grapple with AI, automation, and the climate crisis today. Think of the Industrial Revolution as the original startup boom. A bunch of scrappy innovators with big ideas, a lot of sweat, and a few questionable safety practices. They disrupted agriculture, transportation, and daily life, then left us with a legacy we're still trying to debug, patch after patch, while hoping the next update doesn't crash the whole system. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the smoky, clanking, awe-inspiring world of the Industrial Revolution, please help us keep the channel thriving. Like this video, share it with your fellow history buffs, and subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode of What Is, where we turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, one fascinating topic at a time. Your support lets us keep researching, scripting, and delivering the content you love. Thanks for watching, and stay curious. And now, for a bonus nugget you won't find in the standard timeline. Did you know that the first recorded use of the term engineer to describe a person who designs and builds machines dates back to 1325, long before the steam engine? The word originally referred to someone who operated engineer, medieval siege engines like catapults and trebuchets. So when you hear mechanical engineer today, you're actually echoing a title that once belonged to the folks who hurled giant rocks at castle walls. Talk about a career upgrade, from launching boulders to launching locomotives. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, every great invention started as a crazy idea in someone's mind, perhaps even yours. See you next time.